I was asked by a student how to get a character's eyes to glow, in their case, glow red, and then have a shine in the eye, kind of like that anime, bing, or like when the character smiles and you get that ding on the teeth. How to do something like that visually. Very quick and simple. So we're going to do that here. Now, for the eyes, it's pretty simple. It depends on how your character is set up. In this case, this is the character they are using. So I'm going to use it here as well. So we've got Stuart, and he's got these just dot black eyes. And if I want to change the color and animate the color of this, all I need to do is go to Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade, which I have open over here. Find the color of the eye. So right there, that's my eye color right there. And I can just key this. So here's our face right there. I'm going to key the color. So I'm going to right click on it, set key right there. And then let's do this over a few frames here. I'm going to key this again. And then I'm just going to click on the color swatch and change the color. There we go. Maybe a darker red here. And now, whoop, we've got red eyes. I could add maybe a little bit of ambient color so they feel like they're glowing, as well as a little bit of incandescence, just to kind of get that little shine in there a little bit. I don't have to, and I could animate those as well. But that's pretty much it. So you can animate any color you want at any time. It's pretty simple. So we can go to green, and now he's just Christmas lights. And then we'll go back to black. There we go. Bing. So if you're wanting to animate like police sirens and just keep it very simple and cartoony, you could just have a polygon cylinder on top of a vehicle and just animate the color from blue to red, blue to red, blue to red, and you've got a siren right there. Done. Again, we don't need complex things in our scene. We don't need a bunch of complex lights that change color and all of this extra stuff. We can just animate the base color. Done. Same thing with transparency. If you want a ghost, you can just animate the transparency and have it fade away. And then come back. Haha. So, for example, the body here. That's the hair. Let's select the body here. I could just animate the transparency. And then bring it back. And just have the character become a ghost. And just have his eyes and hair kind of wander through the scene. You can do all sorts of things like that. A key thing in Maya to keep in mind is that you can actually key pretty much anything. If you open up your attribute editor or your channel box, even if you can't hit S to set a key, so for example, if I select this and hit S, you'll notice that by default, it doesn't really visually show anything, but I can always right click and key pretty much any of these. So it's very, very nice. If you need someone to have like tears in their eyes, let's actually create a reference here. I'm just going to bring in character with actual eyes. Okay. So let's say I want to have a character in my scene and they're going to start getting teary-eyed and kind of, I want it to feel like they're about to start crying. What I can do, excuse the very distorted view. I have to zoom in quite a bit because I have the hypershade open here. Let's actually minimize things so we get a little bit less distortion. There we go. So what I can do is find the material for his cornea. And actually, let's set him to render mode here. And then bring in his textures as well. So if the textures don't come in, you can just go to the file path editor and repath the files. There we go. So now we're just dealing with the high res version. Right there, we get those nice eye shaders and everything. But let's say I want him to feel like he's about to start crying or like teary-eyed. I can find the eye material, which I believe in this one, is it here? Let's see. Nope. This one? Yeah, this one. So, haha. Turn him into a Batman type superhero. We could do that. But we've got this. All I need to do is animate the specular color. So what I can do is turn down the reflective color here. So his eyes are less shiny, essentially. And then as he's supposed to get more teary-eyed, I just raise this up and it's going to make his eyes feel shinier. And I can even change the cosine power so it starts off kind of wide and like you can see it's not very sharp. And then his eyes get shinier and it gets thinner and it creates the feeling of moisture in the eye. You get that water shine on there. So with that, when you animate that and see that happen, you're going, like the character could blink and then suddenly their eyes are just shinier and it makes them feel like the eyes are a little bit more wet. And again, that's just, in this case, the cosine power and specular color. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of create these interesting effects with very little work, and you don't have to like do a full render and try to get the, like water simulation or something like that. Nope, not at all. So yeah. Let's see. Now, the other part of this was creating a shine for the eyes. So for something like that, what I would do is just create a simple piece of geometry and animate it. That's it. Essentially what I'm doing is creating a sprite. So I would create a polygon primitive. Now you can create any primitive you want. So I'm just gonna, let's go with the super ellipse here. That should basically give us what we need. And channel box. There's so many different things you can do here. I should have just picked something simpler. Let's pick something simpler. I'm not going to play with all those. There's some really cool polygon primitives in here, like the super ellipse, spherical harmonics, and ultra shape. They're really cool, but also really complex. So you can create whatever you want. I'm going to do something manual. So I'm going to go to my modeling menu set, mesh. Is it mesh or edit mesh? I always forget. I never go through the actual menus here. Mesh. And then where is it in here? Or did they switch it here? Okay, yeah. So they moved it to mesh tools. I'm thinking of an old version of Maya. So it's create polygon right here. With the create polygon tool, I can essentially just click and create a polygon that I want. So I'm going to just create kind of this star shape. Isn't it beautiful? Wow. I'm an artiste. Let's kind of shape it a little bit better. My lumpy star. I don't want it to be perfect, actually. I do want it to be a little offset, but we should get it to look a little bit like a star. Okay, so we've got that. Essentially with this, what I can do is place it right where I want it to be. So let's say we want this to be a shine in the eye. Let's scale it down a little bit. Place it near the eye here. There we go. And I want that kind of ding to happen. So what I would do is I would just animate it kind of popping in. So I would have the visibility off first, and then, oh, there's a little beetle on my finger. Hello. Off you go. Be free. Okay, you're really holding onto that glove. Yeah. Come on. There you go. It really liked my glove. A little beetle. really cute. So I'm going to animate this, and I'm just going to have it expand very quickly. So I'm just going to kind of scale it up here and then scale back down. I'm going to keep it big so we can kind of see it. So it goes boop and then like that. And we've still got his colored eyes in there. So let's look at my scales here. And I can probably shorten the time. It's taking a long time here. And let's just add another key here so we have a little bit of an ease. Boom. And we just have that. So we get that little bing right there. As it comes in, let's actually move my animation one frame over. And I'm going to animate the visibility off here and then on right there. So we get that bing, like so. Next, let's add a little rotation to it. So this is going to be rotate Y. So as it goes through, I want it to rotate very quickly here. So we get that kind of, maybe that's a little too much. Oh, I'm using the wrong rotate, that's why. Okay, so it's going to be, let's actually make sure this is 90 degrees here. So I'm only rotating one axis. There we go. Rotate Z. That's the one I want. So rotate Z. I'm going to just delete my keys here. And I want it to have a nice spin right in there. So kind of something like that. And maybe it starts a little faster and then just eases in. So we get it like that. Maybe it goes on a few more frames. So we get something like a bing, and then I can reverse that animation and it goes out. So I can just do something like that. I'm not going to reverse the animation. We'll just keep it like that. Bing. Now, the problem with this is I've animated this. Great, it's working fine. But then I move my camera. Oops. It's not at his eye anymore. Not only that, it's not following his head. I need it to stay at that eye, and I need it to face the camera because it's flat. It's a 2D image. The moment that you move a little bit, you're going to lose the illusion of that kind of sparkle. So, how do I do that? Well, first, I need it to follow the head. So, to do that, I'm just going to take this object and group it and have it follow the head. So I'm going to take this, Control G to group, and then I'm going to take that group and constrain it to the head here. So head, control, group, constrain, parent. Now, as he moves his head, there we go. We've got that little twinkle in his eye. Bing! And no matter where he moves his head, we get that following along. Bing! Okay, great. But now what happens if he moves his head over here? Oh, dang it. That's not working. I need this object to always face the camera. So to do this, I'm going to, let's reset his head position here. I'm going to take that polygon surface once more, and I'm going to group it again. So now I'm putting it into another group, and I'm putting this under the head group because I want the head to be the master control here. Now this group, so let's call this head follow, and then GRP. This is going to be camera follow, or camera point, we'll call it. Now this group is going to determine where the camera is, and it's just going to point towards it. Now to get this set up properly, I'm going to take this, point, I can spell, there you go. I'm going to take this and I'm going to center the pivot on it. So modify, center pivot. That way the pivot is around this object. That's going to be very important. Otherwise things are going to spin around really weird. Then with this, I'm going to create a constraint, but I'm going to create an aim constraint. An aim constraint takes two objects and strives to always point them towards each other. So for example, if I have a cone here, and let's just take another cone, and I'm going to point this right there. I'm going to constrain this cone to this one, and I'm going to use an aim constraint. Now let me make sure that my aim constraint has maintain offset turned on so it doesn't snap like we just saw. Add that. Now as I move this, you'll notice that the other cone always points towards it. It's been locked to aim towards this object right there. This is how eye controls on rigs are usually set up. So if you have that eye control and you can move it around and the eyes follow it, it's an aim constraint. So with that, we need this object here to point to the camera. So I'm going to just kind of line it up to the camera here. I'm going to select my camera first. So I'm going to use the perspective camera. Then I'm going to select that group that I created right there. Constrain aim, like so. Now, wherever I move my camera, see how it just stays flat to camera? This is how they used to do old 2D sprites. So on the Nintendo 64, on the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, when you had sprites, 2D images in a 3D world, so Super Mario 64, for example, had this, you had images of trees, and what they would do is just lock it to the camera so that image always followed the camera wherever it rotated, and it would just look like a 3D tree because you could run around it, or at least kind of look 3D. So now I've got this, the animation still works underneath, and no matter where I go, bing, it's right there. And I can always just adjust it if I want to and kind of reposition it, bing, right there to match the camera position. So there we go. We now have a nice little bling, and this could be like on the teeth or whatever, a little shine, and you can make whatever shapes you want. It could be little heart eyes, and you just place it in front of the eyes and they go bling, and they get that heart shape in there. You could do all sorts of things with this kind of stuff. And it's very simple, very easy, and there you go. You can see in Smash Brothers games. Yeah, exactly. Smash Brothers games, you can definitely see it. A lot of the items and whatnot, especially in the older ones, they were all sprites. Even the newer ones, they still use sprites for certain things. So yeah, it's a quick little trick, but it's super simple. And the same thing you can do in your scene. Like you could, if you want to create, like we were talking about props and whatnot, get an image of a tree, a PNG image with transparency, put in your scene and lock it to the camera with a point orient. And now it's just going to face the camera, and then that's it. Now, what will help even more is you can, if you want it to be a tree, you don't want the tree to tilt with the world either. So you would only constrain it to the rotate Y. So it's only going to spin with the camera, but it's not going to tilt with the camera. So it's, even if you tilt your camera up and down, it's still going to look like a tree. Let's see. Do you use aim constraints a lot? Not typically, no. You use it for rigging quite a bit. For example, with the eyes, you would want the eyes to follow a control. I've used it for certain things, like let's say you have a spotlight that's following a dancer across a stage. I would potentially use a constraint, an aim constraint on the dancer, so the spotlight just follows them throughout the whole shot. And then what I can do is bake out that constraint and then offset it slightly and tweak the curves so that now it doesn't follow them mechanically and perfectly, but has a little overshoot and settle and kind of has that more natural motion, and I didn't have to animate it all manually. So things like that, especially if a dancer is like really running back and forth across the stage, it can be tiring to animate the camera, like, or the light following them. Oh, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to keep all those little motions in place. So yeah, there's certain elements where I can see it, where I've used it and where it's been helpful, but it's not one of my most used constraints, definitely not. But hopefully this will help some people, and kind of it's a nice little trick for quick little effects, especially like if you're doing like an Animal Crossing type game and they've got those cute little like expressions and like exclamation marks and question marks. You could have that over the character's head where a little question mark goes boop, boop, and just pops up, or like a Metal Gear Solid exclamation mark. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you, and you can just put it there. You go, nice and simple, and you just animate it, kind of bringing it in, and then boop, go down, turn off the visibility, done. And you can have a character reacting to something, like they go, oh, and you have the little whoop of surprise go over them, or they could be angry and you have that little grumbly like squiggle over their heads. You could do all sorts of things like that. Now, if you do something like that, the big thing is that you want to make sure your animation reads without it first. So you want to make sure that everything is understandable, everything is clear. If they're questioning, that their pose reads as questioning. And then that element is just adding a visual flair. If the only reason the character feels like they're questioning something is because of the question mark, that's not good. Because now you're relying on, essentially, it's like saying words. It's like angry over top of an angry person. It's like, nah, you want to make sure that the character feels angry.